What are you at? It's Paul from Wicked Acorn. Welcome back to what is it? Wednesday. It's Hump Day. So today we got our quiz, and let's get into our show and see what's happening. We've got um, we've got to find out where that photo is. I've shown you a photo of this place before, and it is. Where is this place? We'll get to it in a minute. Let's look at tomorrow's mystery photo. Where is this place? We're on this side of the pond now in the UK. Hope you got your tea ready. So that is our where is it for the next live stream. I'll show you it again before we leave. It's the 8th of October. And today in history, in 1818, padded gloves designed by Jack Broughton are first used in a competitive boxing match between two unnamed English boxers at Aix-la-Chapelle in France. And those are the gloves. Those are the first boxing gloves there. Ah, yes, you remembered Asterix. Hello, Asterix. Yes, it is Chicago. And we'll get to that in a moment because something happened on this day in history in Chicago. The origin of the gloves, Jack Broughton introduced mufflers, he called them, in his boxing school, which were made with leather padding and stuffed with horsehair or lamb's wool. The purpose of the mufflers was to protect the boxers' hands and faces, preventing injuries like black eyes and broken noses, which were common in bare knuckle fighting. While Broughton designed them for training, they were not part of the rules for public fights until much later in boxing history. And why, I don't know, but I remember the name of the last bare knuckle heavyweight boxing champion. It was John L. Sullivan. He was the last bare knuckle heavyweight boxing champion. Why I remember that, I don't know. Um, Today in history, I'm going to move forward a little bit, and this is something we've talked about before. Now, how do I get this to play? It is 1927, and it is a film called The Second 100 Years. A silent short film is released starring Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, the first Laurel and Hardy film with them appearing as a team. And I guess, what was it? Was it yesterday? Was the jazz singer, or the day before? The first talkie, and that was 1927 as well. But that was, yeah, so Violet Carson's Ina Sharples still had a job at this point in time playing. You have a friend who's been there. Okay, yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the kidney mirror in a second. Um, yeah, so it's amazing. It didn't all happen at once. The talkies didn't replace silent films. Uh, they did another silent film after this, Laurel and Hardy. And I just noticed the mug I'm using today. If you ever visit Sale, inevitably someone will tell you that the Brooklands Hotel used to be there, and Laurel and Hardy once stayed there. But it's my mission to amend that. There's a video on the channel. I can't remember what it's called. It's about John Johnson Hunt, this guy here. And he was a firefighter. 5th of July, 1909, there was a fire at the Brooklands Hotel. And unfortunately, John Johnson Hunt was lost a few days later. He was a burning beam fell on him and he died as a result of his injuries. So that is the new Brooklands hotel story. The so yeah, have a look at that video. If it's they put up a red plaque. This is his red plaque, and there's a red plaque on side of the can't remember the name of the building that's on the site now. The Brooklands Hotel was torn down in the 70s, and yeah, so they put up a red plaque to him, and it's a nice little story. This day in history. This is something. Oh, it's playing the video again. Uh, Martha Stewart is jailed. 2004. This day in history. She begins a 5-month incarceration at federal prison camp Alderson for insider trading and obstruction of justice. Now, I don't know if this is not of much note, but I want you to tell me in the comments. Good evening, Astrax. Good evening, World Peace. Please leave a comment. Do you guys know who Martha Stewart is? Martha Stewart is, she's a homemaker, like she does crafts and cooking and things like that, making holiday wreaths and bottling stuff and canning stuff. And I have no idea. I've never really watched Martha Stewart, but she was really popular, really big in the 80s, the 90s. And she yeah, she had a television show. And so leave a comment if you know who Martha Stewart is, because there's a little bit that I want to do in the Christmas concert that involves Martha Stewart. And was she something that you guys were aware of? Even if you weren't, let me know. Let me know that you have no idea who she is. Not known to Astrax. Okay. Anyone else, if you know her or don't know her, leave a comment so I can get a bit of an idea if people know who Martha Stewart is. She was absolutely huge in American television. Um, and this was a huge story when she got nailed for insider trading. She began a 5-month sentence on this day in history. Let's see, she was found guilty of charges including conspiracy and obstruction of justice following a highly publicized trial in early 2004 and was sentenced to 5 months in prison. So she was really popular, and there's a little joke I want to do in the Christmas concert that involves Martha Stewart, which will be lost on people if you don't know who she is. I'll have to explain who she is otherwise. The kidney. The sculpture is called Cloudgate, and the location is Chicago. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at an event that happened this day in history. World Peace doesn't know either. Fanny Craddock. Okay, I don't know. The name is familiar, Fanny Craddock, but I don't know who that is. The sculpture is called Cloudgate, and it was by Indian-born British artist Anish Kapoor, and it's the centerpiece of Granger Plaza at Millennium Park in the Loop community area of Chicago. Constructed between 2004 and 2006, the sculpture is nicknamed the Bean because of its shape, a name Kapoor later grew fond of. It's made up of 168 stainless steel plates welded together. That is a feat. That is quite a feat. Welding stainless steel is not easy in itself, and to make a thing like that out of stainless steel and weld it all together and have it look seamless and shiny like that is quite the feat. It's 33 by 66 feet by 42 feet and weighs 110 short tons. So that is Chicago, and we're going to watch a little story about Chicago. And this is from a channel, I've forgotten the name of it. It's the channel is called Because It's Interesting, and I'll leave a link. I think I put it all in there already. And it's about the Chicago fire of 1871, which happened this day in history. And I don't know anything about it. I watched a little bit of it to see if it was okay to watch, but I don't know anything about the Chicago fire. So that's what we do here. We learn things from history. So let's have a look. It's, however, I do know, and I've heard of this story of the cow kicking over the lantern. I didn't know it was the Chicago fire, but it's something I vaguely remember. And well, let's find out.
Early in the 1840s, Chicago was known as the Boomtown, being the 92nd most populous city in the United States with about 4,000 people. Doesn't sound like much right now, considering the population now being nearly.
This is a thing that always amazes me. St. John's, Newfoundland, which I keep telling you about, my old hometown. I think St. John's is only about the size of Sale, but it's much like here. It's surrounded by a bunch of other communities, and St. John's is the capital city of Newfoundland and Labrador. So it has everything that a city of its size wouldn't really have. You know, all the major hospitals and all that stuff that you'd find in a big city. But it's not that big a city, it technically, but it incorporates, you know, the greater St. John's area. There's a city right next door, Mount Pearl. You don't know that you're leaving the city at all. Like here and Conception Bay South, it's all become one place now. However, the thing that's really interesting about St. John's is it's the oldest city in North America. Mexico City also claims that, and it's hard to tell which one wins the prize. But St. John's, at this time in history, was probably one of the biggest cities in North America as well. And it's a strange thing that it didn't become the large city that these places became. There's only 4,000 people in Chicago in 1871. There was more than that in St. John's in 1871.
Million. By the 1850s, Chicago was a busy metropolitan area, having completed canals, railroads, its first steam locomotives, steam-powered elevators, and with the arrival of the telegraph. Chicago's thriving economy attracted large numbers of new immigrants who set up new businesses, factories, barns, and houses. In the course of the next 30 years, the population increased at such a rapid rate from only 4,000 to over 300,000 people resided in Chicago. Until, in 1871, from October 8 to October 10, Chicago burned in a devastating fire. The fire destroyed thousands of buildings, killed an estimated 300 people, left about 100,000 people homeless, and caused an estimated damage of $200 million.
So it's a really common thing in Philip Tabton. Okay, they were chefs, yes. Yeah, she wasn't a chef as such, but she did cooking things. It was more homemaking kind of stuff, Martha Stewart. Um, yeah, all different kinds of homemaking things, decorating your house and all that kind of stuff. Um, this was really common fires in the 1800s in North America. St. John's burned to the ground in 1892. And I was thinking it was, there's a connection between Boston and St. John's because Boston burned to the ground as well. And I thought this is what it was, but it's not. It's a different fire. And St. John's sent, oh God, it was incredible. Uh, I don't remember now, but they sent like 4,000 carpenters to Boston to rebuild Boston after their Great Fire. And then, of course, St. John's burned down in 1892 and they returned the favor. Uh, the house I lived in was built right after the fire, the first house we lived in, and 1892, 1893. And they were really poorly built, really quickly built. And yeah, it was a lovely house. It's a lovely house now, but they were really slapped together quite quickly. There was 20,000 people living in tents in Bannerman Park throughout the winter. And a Newfoundland winter is not like a UK winter, let me tell you.
Directed fire equipment arriving too late, it was only when rainfall and water from the lake that the huge fire and the continuing destruction was brought to a halt after 2 days straight of burning Chicago. What does chaos stand for? The chiefs have arrived on the scene, especially that day when they were able to do nothing to calm down that fire. Serious fires were frequent in Chicago, but no one expected the event of the night of October 8th. The city had gone months without rain. The people suffered a long period of hot, dry, windy conditions, and a major fire the previous night had exhausted the firemen and damaged their equipment. And with most of the structures made from wood, including the streets and sidewalks, it kindled the fire even more from block to block, until the fire grew so powerful it consumed the supposedly fireproof stone and brick buildings. How did it all happen?
This is the bit about the cow coming up. Um, the fire in St. John's was a guy dropped his pipe in a barn and set fire to the thing. When was that? Most of the buildings in St. John, North America, are wood construction. Civic buildings are metal, glass, stone. Not a lot of the buildings in St. John survived the Great Fire in 1892. And I think it was 1992, somewhere around there, like 100 years later, there was another big fire. And of course, nowadays, raised several feet. I don't know. I don't know much about Chicago. Um, one interesting thing is in Newfoundland, a lot of people say Chicago. There's an R in there. And it's a thing you hear in this country. And I've heard it, and it's like, where is that accent from? It's something that we've retained. And you hear people say Chicago. And Chicago was, the first skyscrapers and stuff. So a lot of Newfoundlanders moved to Chicago to work on the high steel. The Newfoundlanders are well known or were well known in the United States, in New York and Chicago, Philadelphia, those places, a lot of the high steel workers were from Newfoundland, you know, from climbing up the rigging of ships and stuff. And a lot of Newfoundlanders and the Mohawk Indians were also uh, a lot of the high steel workers. So I got a lot of family that live in New York State from that generation that moved away in the 30s, and a lot of cousins and whatnot. Um, yeah, Chicago. I don't know. Does that sound familiar to you? Putting an R in. There are a lot of different accent things. I find accents really interesting.
Legend has it that a cow being milked by Mrs. Catherine O'Leary kicked over a kerosene lantern, igniting a bonfire that spread across 2,000 acres
A paraffin lantern, right?
of Chicago. Knock knock, who's there? Cows go. Cows go who? Cows go moo. The famous tale of Mrs. O'Leary's cow became the word of people's mouths after the colossal fire, and has been passed down ever since. The old folk used to sing, "Late one night, when we were all in bed, Mrs. O'Leary lit a lantern in the shed. Her cow kicked it over, then winked her eye and said, 'There'll be a hot time in the old town tonight.'" It all began.
So this is familiar to me. I don't know why, but that rhyme is familiar to me.
There'll be a hot time in the old town tonight. It all began on the night of October 8th, a Sunday, at about 9 p.m. at the barn of Patrick O'Leary and Catherine O'Leary. The O'Leary family were immigrants from Ireland who lived at 137 DeKoven Street in Chicago. They had a small dairy business, and she routinely milked the cows in the barn behind their cottage. That night, Catherine O'Leary and her husband Patrick, who was a Civil War veteran, had already retired for the night and were fast asleep when they heard their neighbors calling out about a fire that broke out in the barn. Some accounts rumor about a cow kicking over a lantern and starting the fire that was quickly responded to by firemen, while other rumors tell another tale. The other rumor that spread in the neighborhood.
Good evening, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you guys, yeah, I've heard people say it here, I guess. Chicago. It's a strange thing to put that R in, but there are certain words you'll hear an R inserted where it shouldn't be. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. It's um, it's strange, but there are so many strange accents in this country. Um, this is familiar to me for some reason. I don't know why. Again, these are, things from my childhood that I remember. Why I would know this? I think was some great uncle or something that moved to Chicago, and worked in high steel there. I don't remember.
While other rumors tell another tale. The other rumor that spread in the neighborhood was that a boarder in the O'Leary's house named Daniel Pegleg Sullivan had sneaked into the barn to have a few drinks with his friend, and the fire was started in the barn's hay when they were smoking pipes. Others say it is possible that the fire began from an ember which blew from a nearby chimney. No one will really know what happened that night at the barn of Mrs. O'Leary, but what isn't disputed is the fact that the fire caused a whole lot of damage. Starting from rumors of the neighborhood, it soon took off when a newspaper reporter, Michael Ahern, wrote an article about Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicking over a kerosene lantern. According to official reports, when authorities were investigating the fire, they heard the testimony of Mrs. O'Leary and her husband a month later in an article in the New York Times on November 29, 1871, headlined "Mrs. O'Leary's Cow." In the article, Catherine O'Leary testified before the police and fire commissioners that she and her
I'm sure there's a song about this. I must know this from a song. Mrs. O'Leary's cow. I don't remember.
husband had been asleep when two men came to alert them of the fire. Patrick O'Leary also said that he did not know how the fire began, and he had also been asleep and woke up when he heard the neighbors. The board also questioned Daniel Sullivan, who lived directly across from O'Leary, who was the first to alert Patrick to the fire. Sullivan picked up the name Pegleg for his wooden limb. He claimed to have attended the party and left about 9:30. When he stepped out, he saw a fire in the O'Leary's barn and ran across the street screaming, "Fire, fire, fire," and headed straight for the fire so that he could save the cows. The authorities then concluded that the O'Learys were not in the barn when the fire began, and although the precise cause of the fire is unknown, it may have been started from an ember that blew from the chimney on that windy night. What happened to the O'Leary family after that? Miraculously, their house was not burnt as the flames spread outward from their property, but that only added to the constant rumors circulating in the neighborhood. Before the fire, no one took notice of Patrick and Catherine O'Leary, who lived with their 5 children on the west side of the city. Patrick was a laborer and Catherine sold milk from door to door, keeping her 5 cows in the barn. Sadly, because of all the constant questioning and botherance of the people, the O'Learys sold their cottage on DeCoven Street in 1879 and moved many times, eventually settling in South Halsted Street on what was then the far south side. Mrs. O'Leary lived the rest of her life in seclusion, only leaving the residence to attend daily errands. 24 years later, she died of acute pneumonia, but the real reason may have been due to a broken heart from all the harassment she faced about the destruction caused by the fire. Even though to majority of the public, Mrs. O'Leary and her cow was the center of the Great Chicago Fire, some even say it was a meteor that split into pieces as it fell to earth, setting off simultaneous catastrophic fires in Chicago and Peshtigo, Wisconsin. It happened so that the same day the Great Chicago Fire began, a fire broke out in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, in which more than 1,000 people lost their life. Historical records show that there were over 20 fires throughout Chicago during the week right before the Great Fire broke out. Fortunately, Chicago's infrastructure, including sewer,
Everything seems so far apart when you think about a journey. That's Newfoundland, there in the top right-hand corner, the island of Newfoundland. And everything is so close by water, which is not how we travel anymore. We don't travel by water, you know, even by plane. Like when you travel by plane to somewhere like Chicago, you probably have to fly to Toronto first. Like there's no direct flight. You got to fly all over the place to get to places in America these days. And well, Chicago is much more inland, but all those places in what we call the Boston states, New England, it's really close by water.
Chicago during the week right before the Great Fire broke out. Fortunately, Chicago's infrastructure, including sewer, water, and transportation systems, remained mostly intact. Rebuilding efforts that took place soon after the fire led to a spurring economic growth and the development of some of the world's first skyscrapers. Within the next 10 years, the city's population had nearly doubled.
Just want to appreciate this person's city in USA that was raised several feet in Chicago in the mid-19th century. Why did they do that, I wonder? This is quite good here. This is the kind of stuff I do occasionally in my little documentaries. Just watch the boats. The boats are moving in this. She made a little animation.
The fire led to a spurring economic growth and the development of some of the world's first skyscrapers. Within the next 10 years, the city's population had nearly doubled, and Chicago was well on its way to becoming the major city it remains today. So if Mrs. O'Leary's cow didn't kick over the lantern, what were the Great Fire's true origins? First of all, many things about the case make absolutely no sense, and a few simple questions really end up proving her innocence. Like, why would Mrs. O'Leary set fire on her own property, risking her own life and her family's? And why would she set fire to the barn, killing her cows, her source of income? I mean, I'm pretty sure she would have been able to calculate the consequences before setting such a fire. And while the story of Mrs. O'Leary and her cow is just a rumor, the legendary tale still lives on. Lithographs of the scene were produced in the late 1800s, and popular songs and even movies were made down the years. The real blame of the enormous fire actually lies with the fact that a long drought over a very hot summer made Chicago prone to fires, loosely enforced fire codes, and the fact that the city was built almost entirely of wood. And turns out, the newspaper reporter Michael Ahern admitted that he and other reporters made up the story, and an article was posted to correct his account after he died in 1927. But finally, in 1997, the Chicago City Council passed a resolution exonerating Catherine and her cow from all the blame. If you liked our video, share it with your friends and family, and come to our channel for more videos like this one.
That was pretty good. I didn't know anything about the Chicago fire until now. The city was built on low-lying swampy land near Lake Michigan, which caused standing water, and they raised it up. Interesting. Don't know anything about Chicago. I don't think I've ever been to Chicago. Don't think I've ever been there. I've been in the area, but not in Chicago properly. So that was very interesting. There's a link to the channel and the video if you want to have a look at her channel. Let's go, where we got to go now? It's quiz time. And this is what I was worried about. Oops, I spilled my tea. I have to use my shirt to wipe it up. I don't have anything nearby. It's quiz time, and this is what I was worried about because this hasn't happened yet. The reason this is here, what was John Lennon's best-selling solo single released in 1971? Revolution, Imagine, Just Like Starting Over, Jealous Guy. I looked at this before we went live here. I haven't done the quiz, and I can't advance it until we answer the question. And when I looked at it first, I didn't see 1971, so I know the answer now. Because I was wondering if Just Like Starting Over had, had sold more copies. Unlikely. Yeah, it's definitely Imagine. But the reason that's there is because tomorrow is John Lennon's birthday. Definitely Imagine. Kenya Wangari Maathai was the first African woman to do what in 2004? Win the Booker Literary Prize, be appointed head of the World Bank, win the Nobel Peace Prize, win an Academy Award. I have no idea. Does anybody know? Leave a comment on that one. Leave an answer for me because I have no idea on this one. Not a clue. 2004. I don't know the name. It's a complete guess. Anybody? Win the Booker Literary Prize? I'm just going to guess that because I don't know. I don't even know what that is, really. I've heard of the Booker Literary Prize. No, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. Which U.S. president established the Office of Homeland Security? I think that was today in history. It was one of the ones I was going to put in the this day in history was this one. And it was one of the Bushes. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I was looking at the when they moved that pub there, the old pub in the city center. What's the name of that pub? That was pretty interesting. They moved that. Something I'll look into at some point in time as a video. It was one of the Bushes and Homeland Security. I'm gonna guess George W. George W. Because 9/11. That's my guess. I'm pretty sure it was one of the Bushes. It was. Leif Erikson, ooh, I know that name, became the first European to do what in 1000 AD? Travel to China, sail around Cape Horn, reach the East Indies, reach North America. Does anybody know the answer to that one? Yes, it was George W. This one I know. And let's see. That is, let's see if I can find that quickly. We're coming up on that soon. Here we go. We're coming up on bonfire night soon. And this is a video that I will probably put out again because it's a lovely little bonfire night video. And there we go. Unlike most of the world, and most of Canada for that matter, in Newfoundland we've always celebrated bonfire night. Newfoundland was England's first claim in North America, so there are still deep, long-lasting ties with this country. I spent most of my life in Canada, and not just anywhere in Canada. I grew up in Newfoundland. It's Canada's most easterly province. It's actually the most easterly part of North America. It's the bit closest to here. You just turn left to Greenland, which is how the Vikings found it 1,000 years ago today. Well, maybe not today, but it could have been today. If you follow science and history news, you'll know it's been known for some time that the Vikings set up station in L'Anse aux Meadows, Newfoundland, long before Columbus supposedly discovered America. Recent findings have narrowed it down to a specific year, and that year was 1,000 years ago exactly, in the year 1021. Scientists used an atmospheric radiocarbon signal produced by a dated solar storm as a reference. This enabled them to pinpoint the exact felling year of a tree that was used in the Viking settlement to the year 1021. So there you go. That's the answer to that question. Yeah, the Vikings, they think they went farther than Newfoundland, of course, and why wouldn't they? Oh, I've gone to the wrong thing. But the only evidence that's been found is in L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland on the Great Northern Peninsula. And there was, they found a, they have a recreation of the site now. It doesn't look like what you saw there. It didn't look like what was there when it was found. And they found a spindle whorl, like a rock with a hole through it for making twine, string, uh, for weaving. So yeah, the answer to that one is Reach North America. Leif Erikson is well known in Newfoundland. The tuxedo jacket is named after the venue it was first worn, Tuxedo Park, New York. No idea. No idea. The Shambles, yeah, that's it. I thought it was a Shambles. Medieval pub moved to new location, Old Wellington Inn and Sinclair's Oyster Rooms to Shambles Square in 1999 after the 1996 bombing. Yes, that's a story I'll probably do at some point in time because you guys know about it, but there are Canadians watching this show too. They don't know about this stuff. I don't know. Anybody know the answer to this one? I'm I'm just going to go true. It is true. Okay. The first Summer Olympics, the first Summer Olympic Games to be held in Latin America opened in which city? So these are all things that happened this week in history. Um, oh God, I don't know. Buenos Aires, Mexico City, Rio de Janeiro, Santiago. Rio de Janeiro sounds familiar. Mexico City, I don't know. Mexico City. What was U.S. singer-songwriter Bob Dylan awarded in 2016? U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom, Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, Academy Award for Best Song, Nobel Prize for Literature. Again, I don't know, but I don't recall Dylan getting an Academy Award or a Nobel Prize. I'm going to go with the Medal of Freedom. Mexico is correct. You're right. It's unfortunate. I need to figure out a way to do this so you guys can answer because, as I keep telling you, I'm in the future. So by the time you've answered, I've gone on to the next question sometimes. A Grammy? All right, let's go for Grammy. No, it was a Nobel Prize for Literature. Wow. What is the world's oldest airline still operating? Qantas, is that how you say that? KLM, Aeroflot, Delta Airlines. I don't think Delta Airlines still exists, does it? I don't know the answer to this. I am just going to guess the first one. Qantas? Is that how you say that? No, it's KLM. 33 miners from what country survived a record 69 days underground this week in 2010? Uruguay, Mexico, Chile, Argentina. I recall the story. Delta still exists? Yes, it was KLM. See, that's how far ahead I am. Your answer is just showing up. I don't know the answer to this either. I remember it. Chile. You're right. Good one, Asterix. In what year was the day of 6 billion declared October 12th to mark? In what year was the day of 6 billion declared October 12th to mark the birth of the world's 6 billionth person? Wow. 6 billion. It can't be that long ago. How many people are there now? Isn't there only like 7 billion now? Anybody know this one? I don't. It happened on October 12th. And this is the thing I was talking about. So, it's ruined, that one. I can't tell you about that on October 12th, although I probably will. October 12th. Anybody know? 1999? Yay! Good guess. We got 6, or I got 6. And the average score on that one is 6.8. It appears to be, yeah, okay. I don't know, maybe we should move it to Friday or something. Well, that is that. That is our story today. And we'll go back to our where is it photo. I'll show you that once more. This one is interesting. We're on this side of the pond in the UK. Anybody know where this place is? I'll tell you tomorrow. It's connected to an event in history that happened tomorrow in history. And I'll see what kind of video I can find to show you about this event, because I haven't made one about it. So that is our Where Is It photo for tomorrow. Oh, there was one other thing I had to show you. I was telling you about the place I went for my daughter's going away party. And I went to a nearby place. This wasn't where we brought my daughter, but I went to a nearby place on my own while they were doing something else. And I went to, and this is going to be our Halloween video. Now, don't give it away if you know the answer, if you've heard of this thing. I went to the Cursed Oak Tree, and that's going to be for our Halloween video, the story of the Cursed Oak Tree. So I collected up a whole bunch of acorns from the Cursed Oak Tree. You could call this a wicked acorn. You could call that a wicked acorn truly, because it is from a cursed oak tree. And that's going to be our Halloween video. And I think what I'll do is make some kind of contest and give away some of these acorns. I'm going to plant one, see if I can get a tree to grow from the cursed oak tree. I'm not afraid of the curse. And there you go. The Cursed Oak Tree. A wicked acorn. So there you go. All right. Anything else we need to talk about today? Oh, there was one other thing, and a little loath to point this out, but this is what's going to be history someday. The ship that was seized last night, this morning, bringing aid to Gaza, bringing medical supplies. There were 3 Newfoundlanders aboard. Pretty sad, bringing medical supplies. And they were all seized. 150 of them or something were seized. And my daughter sent me this. There were 3 Newfoundlanders on the ship. Okie dokie. I was just looking at your comments there. So that's our story for today. I don't think there's anything else. Anything else? I don't think so. All right. Thanks for coming by. And we'll see you in the next one.